Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Quet, and in today's video, we're going to be covering one of my favorite topics when I first started learning about JavaScript, and that's objects. Essentially, what an object is one of the seven basic data types in JavaScript. Um, if you're not familiar with the basic data types in JavaScript, there are seven. There are numbers, strings, booleans, null, undefined, object, and symbol. And an object is used for complex data structures. Now you might hear that list and you might think like, well, there's other things in JavaScript. Where's the arrays? You didn't list array. Well, an array is a type of object. In today's video, we're going to focus on a more, I guess, traditional uh, use of an object. Um, but just so you know, like an array is an object. For example, if I was to make an array here, const r equals array, and we'll even put something in it, right? We'll put one, two, three. Uh, we're gonna go in the node first, and we're gonna do const r equals one, two, three. We look at r; it's an array with three indexes, one, two, and three. And when we do type of on r, it returns object. Why? Well, because it just is an object. So in JavaScript, an array is an object. I know that might sound a little confusing. Don't think too hard about it. Just think of it this way. An object is used for complex data structures. Arrays can get pretty complex. Arrays can hold other arrays. It can hold all of the other seven data types, or six data types. It can also encapsulate objects as well as other. Yeah, so it gets kind of weird, but just think of it as an array is an object, but an array is a type of object with its own special name. So let's just run it back in and get back into what exactly an object is. So you can think of an object as literally an object that you would use anywhere else in life. So let's say a car. A car is an object. All cars pretty much have the same properties more or less. They all have wheels, they all have doors, they all have windows, they all have a gas pedal or engine. There's a lot of different parts to cars that cars traditionally have. So all cars are objects. They all have different properties to them, and those properties, let's say I have a four-door car. Well, I have a car. One of the properties of that car is doors. My car has four doors. Now, let's say somebody else has another car and their car has two doors. Well, the door is still the property of that object. They just have a different amount of doors. And in this video, we'll kind of cover that. I'm just going to use people in our example, and you'll kind of get to see exactly what I'm talking about. So in today's video, I'm going to use some characters from I guess it's a pretty popular TV show called Community. If you haven't watched it and you have a Hulu account, I definitely recommend watching it. It was a great show. If you're a fan of Childish Gambino, Donald Glover. He's in the show. He played a character named Troy. It was great. It's a great show. But anyways, let's kind of jump into it and how to make an object. So first thing, oh, and we're also going to be talking about classes in this video, which are also a type of object. It's gonna be really fun. So let's get into it. So I have an object here, and let's go with Troy, which was Childish Gambino's character. Sorry, my computer's being a little weird. Okay, const Troy equals, and then we're using these curly brackets here, and this in JavaScript represents an object. This is what our object looks like. Right now we have an empty object. Troy is equal to an empty object. However, we're quickly going to fill that with some data. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to write first name, and his name is Troy. So what we have here is a key and a value. So objects are made of key value pairs. So you have a key saying what exactly it is that we're going to be identifying, and then we have a value giving the key a value. So you can kind of think of first name as a variable. pretty much. Essentially, we have a variable called first name, and it is equal to Troy. So when you make your key value pairs, you always do first you do the name of the key colon instead of equal sign, and then its value. Once you've completed that, if this was the only thing we're gonna have in an object, we would just leave it as is. However, if you are gonna have more key value pairs, you will use a comma to separate them. It's traditionally like best practice to kind of click enter and go on a new line to keep everything looking nice. And then you write your next key value pair. So here we're also going to use last name. Last name is Barnes. I'm also going to do birthday. Birthday is December 4th, 1989. And this is a string. So, uh, wow, I'm all over the place here. All right. And then we're going to just give a major here. Because this show was based in a community college, and his major was AC repair. Cool. So now we have Troy. We have his first name is Troy. So Troy's an object. We have his first name, his last name, his birthday, his major. So now we have an object encapsulating all of this extra data about Troy. And let's kind of let's log this out and see what it looks like in our console. All right, so if we refresh, we see that we have Troy, and we have this. This is the object that we have here, right? And we console logged out Troy, and this is the information we have on him. We have his first name, his last name, his birthday, his major. All of that information is here and ready for us. And this is a lot more complex than writing out a bunch of strings and just saying, okay. I guess traditionally we would do something like first name equals Troy. Let's see. Khan's first name equals Troy. And maybe Khan's last name equals Barnes. And we would have these four separate variables. But now we're kind of taking these variables and organizing them a little bit more and putting them inside of an object. And then we're going to be able to access the values of the object instead of just having to just grab all of the different variables that are all over the place. This allows your code to be a lot more organized. So let's see, we have this information here. I'm also just going to add another character to the mix here because if you've watched Community, you know what is Troid is pretty much Abit. So we're going to make one more object here, const Abit, who's Troy's best friend. So his first name was Abit. His last name was, I believe this is pronounced Nadir. Birthday. Now, Abil's birthday was a little weird. It just said March 24th with no name on the wiki. We're gonna go with 1989, just because. And we're gonna say his major was film. He was a big film guy. I'm gonna give that a capital F. Cool. And if we console log Abid here, we should return two objects with both of these characters. Okay, great. So we have um two objects here. We have Troy and Abid. And now you might be thinking, well, how do I access this, right? How do I make something happen with this? There's two different ways that you can access this. Well, yeah, I believe there's only two. There may be more, but there's two. I will recommend one over the other, but let me get the first way that I don't recommend out of the way first. The first thing that you could do is by doing something like Troy, and we want to get his first name, so we'll put first name. So here you're using Troy, which is the name of this object, and we're saying get the value of the property first name. We're kind of using an array here. Uh, like an array note. I'm not sure what the name of this notation is, honestly, but you kind of use the symbol short, you use the square brackets, you put the name of the key in quotes, and this should return Troy first name. So we're gonna console log this here, console log Troy first name, and when we refresh, we should just get Troy right here. Great. So let's say we want to make a sentence here. Uh, Actually, no, I'm not gonna go through that whole process. um, I'm gonna kind of keep this simple and keep the video as short as possible. So we do see that we're able to access his first name this way. Now, the way that I recommend to access key value pairs is by using something called dot notation. And with that, you'll just write for dot, and let's say we want to get his last name, last name. I think this looks a lot cleaner. Um, it's less keystrokes. You just um, here I have to put these square brackets and I have to use these single quotes or double quotes, whatever you prefer, and then I have to write out the key. Here I just put that in the key value, well the key. So if we refresh our page again, we should have his last name returned on this time. Great. So um, those are the two ways that you can kind of um, the access the value of your key inside of your objects. And objects are really powerful. They, like I said, they let you kind of organize your code a little bit more. It lets you assign a lot of different values to something. You know, like in the past, you might have something like, well, before you learn about objects, you might have this thing and you're like, well, you might have a person and say const person, like in this example, equals Troy. And then you're like, well, Troy has so many other, values to him. He has a first name, he has a last name. How do I kind of represent this without making a whole bunch of different variables that are all over the place? Maybe I have, you're using a variable first name and you're working on a project. The only character that you have refers to Troy. So you set first name equal to Troy, right? Cool, that works. Then you introduce a second character like Abid, and you're like, oh, I can't use first name again. That's not gonna work, especially if I'm using const.let, because it won't let me redeclare. And if I'm using var, then I'm just gonna overwrite Troy, and it's gonna be Abid for first name, and the first name value for Troy just disappears. This allows you to kind of circumvent that by being able to kind of use similar, you don't have to think of a million different variable names. You don't have to be like Troy first name or like I don't know, something weird like that. Using objects allows you to organize your code a lot more and not have to worry about thinking of a million different, thinking of and remembering a million different variable names. So we have these objects here with Troy and Abbott, and this is cool. And like I said, there's a lot more you can add to this. Another thing that I'll show you really quickly is, let's say, you know what, I have these objects and now I have something else I want to add to it later in my code. So I have Troy, I have Abbott, and I'm like, you know what, it would be great if I added, I don't know, a slogan for these characters, right? So you want to get them a slogan. So Troy and Abbott had a hit TV show on Community, and it was called Troy and Abed in the Morning. So let's say I wanted to add a slogan for both Troy and Abed. Um, the easy way to do that is by using dot notation again and saying something like Troy dot um for slogan, sorry, Troy dot slogan, and set that equal to Troy and Abed in the morning. So if we save this and console log Troy again, we'll see some changes. So we refresh. Here we have the stuff that we made earlier. But here we look at this Troy object and we see we have a slogan. And the slogan is Troy and Abed in the morning. So this is pretty cool. Like we just added more to our object here, and this is the quickest and easiest way to do it in my opinion. Again, you could do it this way where you use the square brackets. I like that notation. I think it's a lot more cleaner. And like I said, like arrays, objects can hold any of the other six data types. So far we've used strings only. Have we only used strings? We've only used strings, but we could even kick it up a notch and say we could use a function here, right? So we could say Troy dot speak, set that equal to anonymous function. I'm using arrow notation to make my anonymous function, and it's going to use slogan. And if we console log Troy again, console log Troy again, we should see that he now has a slogan, and he now has this speak function here, and it does whatever slogan is. So if we come here, we're gonna actually run it. So to be able to run this function, we're gonna do Troy dot speak. And just like you run any other function, you just use the curly brackets after it should run. And we're gonna console log this here. Actually, yeah, let's console log it. So refresh. Slogan is not defined. Um, I believe we have to use Troy dot slogan here. We should be good to go. Slogan is not defined. There we go. So Troy and Abed in the morning is on line 29, which we have console logged here. So I made a mistake earlier. I had to use Troy dot slogan, not just slogan. But either way, use Troy dot slogan, and now we have our speak function here. Our speak key is equal to an anonymous function that runs Troy dot slogan, which is to say Troy and Abed in the morning. And then Troy and Abed in the morning is ran right here when we run Troy dot speak. So this allows you to you can trigger functions by calling an object and its key value pair. So that's pretty cool. It's pretty powerful. It lets you do a lot of different things. So by using objects, you can give your code a lot more depth, a lot more organization, and this is why object-oriented programming is a thing. You use objects. So let's actually back up here. Let's clear this out and let's go over classes. So classes are a kind of object that I guess you can say gives you even more organization. So with classes, I can define what I expect to see and then create objects based on that class. Now with that said, back to my car idea that I spoke of earlier, we have a car and all cars have doors, wheels, they all have a color, they all have whatever. Well, I know all cars have that. So I could create a class of car and say, hey, cars have all of these things, and then I can say that my Tesla is a new car, my Ferrari is a new car, and I can give value to the keys and then create new cars based off of that. Now, that might also be confusing without actually showing you, so let's get into that, and we're going to keep the same characters that we have here. There's a couple different ways to create classes. I'm going to show you two different ways to do it. Either of these ways work. I kind of go back and forth between the two. I don't know if I necessarily have a favorite. I kind of like the second way I'm going to show you a little bit more, but then I kind of think the first one makes a little bit more sense at times. It really doesn't matter. It's all about preference. Um, but I'll just show you two different ways of doing it. So here we're making this thing called student. It's a class. It's an object. You can see class student. It's an object. Notice that I'm using capital letters here after my class. That's just kind of best practice. Whenever you've made any variables, any objects, any array, anything in the past, you've used a camel case. Um, Here, when working with objects, you're going to use initial caps when creating a class. I'm sorry, when using class, you're going to use initial caps. So we have a class of student, and we're going to use something here called a constructor. And here I'm going to put in those four keys that I had before. So first name, last name, birthday. I'm sorry, my phone's going off in the background. Birthday and major. So here, this might get a little confusing. I'm not gonna go, I'm gonna explain this as quickly as possible without being too confusing. We're gonna use something called this, and we're gonna use first name equal to first name. Okay, so what we're doing here is, I think I spelled constructor wrong first off. Okay, cool. So this this keyword this is referring to the class of student. So this is essentially saying student dot first name equals first name. So as easy as I think the easiest way to explain this is essentially we want to be able to use first name as the key when we're creating our new classes based off of this. So by saying student dot first name equals first name, um, where sorry, this is kind of confusing to explain. By using this dot first name, we're saying there's going to be a key. It's going to be called first name, and its value is going to be equal to first name. And I'm going to finish filling this out, and I'm going to circle back to this because I think that's actually going to make it a little bit easier to explain. So uh, this dot first name, this dot last name equals last name. Wow, lots of typos. Okay, so we've created this, and now we want to create a new student, right? So I'm gonna create Troy and Abid, how we had them earlier. So we're gonna have oh yeah, const Troy, and we're gonna set that equal to new student. So like I said, when you create a class, you're creating a model for what um, all things under that class should look like. So we're using a student. We're saying that hey, we have this thing called a student. It's going to be an object. We have this object called student. All students are going to have a first name, a last name, a birthday, and a major. They're going to have one every single time. So we know that this is what they're going to have. So like my car example that I had, if we have a car, we're going to say all cars are going to have tires and a color and wheels, and they're all going to have this. It's just going to Their properties are going to vary. So same kind of object, different properties. So we're gonna have these students. We're gonna have a lot of students, but they're all gonna have different first names, different last names, different birthdays. All of that information is gonna be different. So here we have this variable called Troy, and we're saying it's a new student. So automatically we're making Troy, and he's going to be an object based off of the student class. And here we're gonna give him his first name. We're going to give him his last name, and we're just kind of corresponding. We're just kind of putting that data in uh, that we've already defined goes under the criteria for the student. So 1989, and AC repair was his major. Okay, cool. So now if you were to console log Troy, we refresh here, we have Troy. So we have the same exact value that we had before when we made Troy by hand as just an object. And this is exactly how you make it. So we have Troy, he's a new student, and we see inside this constructor that students have a first name, a last name, a birthday, and a major. And you see how all of that lines up. And if we look at the object that we return here inside of our console, um, JavaScript can be a little weird since it's asynchronous and I don't know, it might be the console, I don't know, but it's returning a little weird here when we expand on it. Doesn't matter. You can just see that this dot first name is the name of the key, and it's equal to whatever first name is. So first name is Troy here in order, and we see that oh well, this is the key. So let's say I just change first name to something random, right? Hey YouTube, right? So we change this key to hey YouTube. Now we're gonna keep first name as the name of the constructor. So we're gonna say this dot hey YouTube equals first name. So whatever we put here as this first value is gonna be equal to first name. So Troy is gonna be equal to first name here and here. This dot hey YouTube is gonna be the name of the key now. So if I refresh, we see hey YouTube is Troy. Doesn't make any sense. So yeah, this is why we make this dot key name is this setting like the key that we're gonna have for students is going to be this. So hopefully that made sense. We're basically just saying we're gonna have a a key called first name and it belongs to student and this is representing student. Okay, cool. So we've gone over that, and we can create as many new students as we want to make, right? So I'm gonna bring Abid back. All right. So March 24th, 1989, and then he was a film major. So we should have that object. Um, and why not? Why not just make another student here? I'm not gonna use the whole study group because it's just way too many of them. But we have a new student, Seth Winger, born November 20th, 1974, and he was a law major. So we should be able to control log all three of them. Do that as save, refresh. And now we have three students. So that's pretty quick and easy way to create students. Instead of every single time writing out three different long objects, we just created one object. We called it student, and we created three new instances of students. And we just gave them names: Troy, Abed, and Jeff. And then we filled out the information from these from that all students have. We just basically line them up and boom. Now we have three new objects made, quick, simple, easy. And hopefully you're kind of seeing how this could work in um, any in different kind of things that you've used. For example, let's say you're playing The Sims, you're making a new character. Well, now you're kind of you're making your sim. All Sims have a name. All Sims have, I don't know, personality traits. They have different skin tone. They have different genders. They have these different things. Well, more than likely, whoever, the people that are creating the Sims with the EA, or I guess whoever's making the Sims, they created a class and they're saying Sim, or person, whatever they want to call it, and they're saying all of them are gonna have these properties, and here you can we're gonna have the people fill out the information, and we're just gonna take that and put it in a wherever it belongs, and they're gonna create new Sims based off of the Sim class, and they're gonna kind of give it a name and all of that. So I think that pretty much covers the basics of objects and classes in JavaScript. Um, just to show you something else that can happen here, I can do something that's popped in my head. Let's say I want to say enroll. I can just set that to true here and save it. And if I refresh it, all of them should have. Oh wait, this dot enroll equals enrolled. Save that. So now all of them should be enrolled, and it's going to be predefined as true. They should all be students, right? So this is why I thought they used Jeff. So Jeff eventually graduates and becomes a professor. So he's no longer a student, right? We can just say false here, right? So we already know it's true. I didn't even write anything for Troy and Ovid. They don't have any type of field here. Because enrolled is automatically true. Why waste time writing some extra stuff here? Well, for Jeff, that's no longer the case. Like, I know we created him as a student, but he just graduated. He's now a student. I mean, he's now a professor. We're going to say that he's no longer enrolled. We're going to put false, right? So when you put false here, when we refresh here, the value is changed for Jeff. He's no longer enrolled. Enrolled is changed to false just for him, because I decided that, oh, this stuff that's already predefined here needs to be changed. So that's pretty much it for this video. Hopefully you guys are excited about classes and objects. After watching this video, I would hope that you go and you play around with this. I've used the example of students here. You can use cars. You can use animals. You can use whatever you want. Like that's like a homework assignment here. Like I've never assigned homework, but here's your homework assignment. Go and play with objects. Play with classes. Create objects based off of classes. Add more key values to some objects, but not other. Do whatever you want. Like just play around with it, and it's an exciting thing to use here. And I definitely wanted to go ahead and get this video out because I will be using classes and objects, and the video that I've been talking about for a while, where I'm going to dive deeper into using higher order functions with just more data. And I was like, well, if I'm going to be using objects and I haven't gone over it, it doesn't make sense for me to put the video out. So here we are. So yeah, and this is the point. I have to kind of get into my YouTube bag, and I want to ask, if you're not subscribed to the channel, if you could just please hit that button to subscribe. It really helps me out a lot as far as getting in front of the eyes of more people. If you're getting help from these videos and you subscribe and you like the videos, more people are going to be able to see them, and they're going to be able to get more help, and we're just going to build a community of like really great developers together. So yeah, subscribe to the channel, like this video. I'd greatly appreciate it, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.